this is a 60-minute hackathon. What we're going to discuss is really how this thing, like we start with, most ideas are bad. That's the key premise of this. Most problem statements are bad because actually we think we know what we're asking for, but in reality is that once we put it in front of users and so on, it's wrong, and then we're just wasting the cycle. So the whole principle of this is like, how can we compress that maximally, right? So that we are much more effective when we start putting it in front of customers and spending much more real money. And that's the really cool thing. So even though it's 60 minutes, I'm going to say like everything I'm going to present is insanely like cognitive load. Like it's really hard. You have to be on top of it. It's not like, oh, you know, let it run something and go to the shower. And that's not how at all what we're going to do. What we're going to do. But first, we just thank our sponsors. Yes. It's the cool thing. The cool thing about podcasting is that you could just fast forward the here and down. Yeah, there you go. And back into it. So very, very quickly about me. I've been doing product for 12 years. I started at Jaguar Land Rover. It was a big, big company. I was bored out of my mind, but we did help launch some really cool cars, Range Rovers back then. And then I pivoted to drones and imaging and agriculture. I helped pivot a drone company into actual aerial imaging for agriculture. And that's when I started with actually AI and co-designing with AI. Then launched the world's first batch-checking solution from home. It started in London. It's coming to the US next year, I believe. And so that was really cool. And then I came into Literati, where I ended up leading product and marketing, as mentioned. And it's been really exciting, but effectively what we're doing is we use AI to figure out what kids are really excited about. We help kids read more while fundraising for the school. On the side, I have Avi Project. It's a collective of people here. I'm originally from Portugal. Hence, JD stands for something totally unpronounceable for most people in the room, I'm pretty sure. We have team members in the States, in London, and in Pakistan, particularly in Portugal, and we help companies actually adopt some of these practices better. So I asked this question already. The only question I asked is, anyone uses OpenClaw here? Anyone trying to OpenClaw at all? Well, that's going to be fun too when you get into it, but we're not going to discuss that today. Main thing, most of the time briefs are badly stated. And again, I'm going to run through these slides for whoever's just showing, and then so that we actually can go into like some much more like hands-on kind of part. And so our first job is not to solve and go for it. It's actually have to define, right? Like it's very common for the CEO. So Jess, she's absolutely amazing. She comes to me with a really cool idea. She came to me with an idea just the other day. She's like, hey, I think we need an end of book fair report and everything. And like, what we're going to do is completely different than an end of book fair report. It came from that, right? That was a kernel of truth there, but that's actually not the thing that should be solved for. And so I think the double diamond kind of system, like, is here and here to stay. We have two parts of the process, right? Like, so first we need to actually define the problem, and then we need to identify the solution. And this is what really the whole process we're going to go through is about, okay? So someone states a problem, and that problem could be terribly stated. Like, we need a feature X, right? I'm going to give you an idea. We're going to go through an example in a second, like where it's going to be like, hey, we need to build Goodreads for kids, for example, right? That's not a problem to say. Like, there's no problem. There's no user defined there. There's so many flaws in that. The first thing is that we're going to explore what that problem space is. Like, who are the users? What's the best practices out there? Who are the competitors? And it's going to be like a mind-expanding type of thing, right? And then we're going to have to reduce that back into, okay, what is the actual problem we're going to try to solve? And maybe instead of being like Goodreads for kids, we're like, actually, we need a tool for teachers that's going to help them, and for that, for them to figure out what kids are excited about, right? And to do that, we need to track what kids are reading, for example. Completely different thing, right? And that's a clear brief. And so from that clear brief of the clear problem you're going to have to do, and many times this was depending on what type of PRD you do in your organization, that could be a PRD or something similar. But like that is like the brief that then from there you can explore different solutions, prototype different solutions, right? And then you pick the direction that seems to resonate the most with dog fooding, users, and everything that you're going to funnel into one, and then you're going to iterate on that as a prototype that works completely. And what we're going to talk about that is creating something which I call a virtual twin, which is from the outside, it's an experience that actually looks and feels exactly how you'd expect the whole end product to feel. However, it's not built on the scalable tool. It's not something that you just ship directly. It's something that if it breaks apart, that's okay, because it's just meant to demonstrate that you're in the right direction. So that's what I think. So just going through a bit more of that. First of all, does that make sense in general? Questions about that? So first thing, defining the problem, right? So researching users, studying competitive space, benchmarks, asking about what the business is really prioritizing, right? I always say, like, you need to understand, like, who are your users, what's the top problems, what's the top problems that the business is trying to solve for? Is that clear? And then explore that whole thing. And then again, the output is a problem statement you'd actually bet on, right? And not just a feature request or something like that. So that's the outcome of that. And then exploring the solution. And here it's going to explore widely, and then we're going to commit tight into the direction. And the output is a prototype. It's not a deck. It's not a Figma. It's an actual thing. Okay. Sorry.
Thanks.
I can also share this afterwards.
Okay. Okay.
By the way, this whole slide deck was, I just spoke to Claude Design. You know, the Claude Design came out yesterday. I spoke for 15 minutes of Claude Design, and this is what came out. So, so anyway, we live in a wonderful world. So like, you know, this is the thing. Like, this is what I commonly see, and add the default of this, right? Get a half-baked brief, pass to a designer, and then, you know, they take a big brief, the designer goes into a direction, right? And then we go into design review, and like the CEO or someone, or even sometimes me, is just like, oh no, this is not quite it, right? And most of the time that happens, it's not because the design picked something ugly, it's not because they made bad UX choices, it's like, oh no, they're solving for the wrong problem. Like, this is not quite the type of feature set that I was looking for. So then you have to kind of go back to the problem and start from the start. And again, the point is, like, the pixels weren't wrong, the problem definition was. So the thing we're going to do then now with AI and Claude Code, right, is these 3 stages, right? We're going to do a deep research stage, right? Who here uses deep research, by the way? Raise your hands. Really? Come on. Really? That's all? Okay. Cool. Deep research is one of the best features that exists in Claude and ChatGPT and everything. I'm going to talk Claude and everything, but, you know, it generalizes to everything except Microsoft Copilot. Copilot sucks. You know, no offense there. Maybe a little. The deep research is effectively, it's a search, but it's just going to multiply massively the number of sources it's going to go at. Gemini is actually excellent at this. And it's going to consolidate what it found into one. Okay? If you're not using deep research for real and you weren't just scared of raising your hand, like, you have to try it. It's like the most easy to use agent that has direct business implications, right? Deep research.
Oh, deep research.
Deep research. So to use deep research, you can go into any of those tools, and it's like a little tool at the bottom, and you can literally tell it, hey, use deep research, and it'll do it. But there's a little tool at the bottom that says, like, turn on deep research. I can show it in a second. But that's like immediate user impact. Like, my dad is 75, and he uses it all the time from the moment I showed it to him. Because like, oh my god, this is incredible, right? Now, you're not going to do one deep research here. You're going to do parallel deep research. You're going to be shooting them off. Because you want deep research on competitors. You want to do UX best practices. You want to understand, like, who are your users? Like, tell me more about teachers. Tell me more about kids. And they're going to be launching in parallel and doing their thing. And that's going to take 10 to 20 minutes to come back to you. And then you're going to aggregate that to give you, so that you can react. And that's why you're always in control of this whole process. You're the one doing all the hard thinking. You're figuring out, like, what is the direction we actually want to go for, right? That's our job. Like, let's make it very, very clear. I've tried to do it the other way and just be lazy and let the system decide for me. Shit. Like, doesn't work. Like, we are the ones in control. We're making the hard decision. So once you've done that and you're like, this is the direction I want to go. Like, for example, that thing was like, oh, we're going to do it for kids. It's going to go to reach for kids, but actually this is something that is much more important for teachers, right? We have a clear direction. It'll come back up when it decides to. Then you're going to do parallel explorations. Same idea as deep research, but now you're creating UIs, right? Literal UIs, right? That you're going to launch and be like, I want 6 variations of these. And you're going to let the system create 6 clickable prototypes or designs of some sort, depends on which tool you use, but the concept is the same at the same time. So that you start to figure out, right? The cool thing about this is that we can say no. We can react like, oh, no, this is not it. Oh, but this is kind of interesting. This bit is interesting. This bit is interesting. And that's going to help you kind of funnel in on a solution, right? And then once you've picked a direction, then you write a clean prompt from scratch. You just generate a brand new clean prompt. You don't take these different prototypes. You create a brand new clean prompt where you're very clear and crisp of like, this is the direction that you want to go. And in fact, the cool trick is you can even use Claude Code and everything to help you generate that prompt in its own right? So you don't have to do all this manual work. But the point is, again, you're giving the clear direction. And that's what you put into Claude Code, or I love using Replit for this specific bit. And then you generate what is the prototype that you then want to show. and then you show this to your team. That's the real power of this, is that you show this to your team, you go through a design review. I've run this whole process in 1 hour with a live meeting with different team members where we all do the same steps at the same time and we discuss what's going on. And then 24 hours later, we do a full design review with the CEO in the room or whoever else we need to. We are in a startup, so the CEO can be involved pretty quickly. But otherwise, like with whoever are the key stakeholders in the room to do that. The outcome of this is alignment, like a bold direction, and hopefully with bolder ideas, because you've actually already figured out that, for example, doing a voice translation tool or whatever is actually totally possible to do this because it's already there and working. So you're past the, oh, can this work or not, and you're much more on like, hey, this is the bold idea we should go for. Does that make sense in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I also say, like, does this make sense all the freaking time? That's super frustrating to everybody, but that's a feature, not a bug, I guess.
Why are we going for a clean prompt and not within the same session? Since it already has the context.
That is fantastic. Because context, there's a massive context deterioration, like in general, with these tools. So it's actually really effective to take the crisp version of it and build the context. That's actually what we're doing all of this time from an LLM perspective. If you take the perspective of an LLM and not from us, right? We're just continuously managing the context so it's the most relevant to this. So and I'll show you how I do it inside of a folder that has actually access to all of the deep researches and everything. And then I'm like, this is the direction I want to, this is the prompt, but it still has access to the folder and it can still like kind of retrieve some of that where it sees it's relevant. And we'll see that also the way I do it will have initialized a Claude.md file that knows what we're trying to do and has already summarized some of the key context, pieces of the context, and we're going to use that to better manage the context. So great question, but the reason is start from scratch again and rebuild in the direction you want so that it doesn't also, otherwise it can leak in like some idea, some feature, or some stuff that you mentioned earlier and then already decided that this is not the direction you want to go, and that's why.
Who is doing the picking of the direction? Is it the whole team or just one person? Or
I guess it depends on the size of your team, right? If you're a single person, I guess you're doing the whole thing. But for us, is design review is the big outcome. We have 2 design reviews a week, and those are 60-minute sessions, and it's going to be like presenting there. And as a team, right, we have a product lead, and we have the people, the different designers and so on that are there, and they're collectively as a team, we're picking the direction. So we've done this recently, for example, for that idea that I mentioned our CEO just had, and so we did that, we decided on a direction there, and then I iterated on it again, and I put it in front of the CEO to be like, hey, are we committing on doing this for our roadmap? Because the actual execution of it, even with vibe coding and everything, can still take weeks or months, right? Like there's still a real opportunity cost of delivering a feature, writing it down, and then maintaining it. So for us, those were the 2 stages. Does that make sense? So it starts with you, then your team, right? And then whoever you need to get approval to actually put it into the roadmap. But the cool thing is that when you put it in the roadmap, you have 2 things. You have a working prototype, that's going to be our virtual twin, that behaves the way you want it to behave. And from it, you generate, yeah, but it does. That's the point. It should behave, black box should behave how you want it to behave, but it's not going to scale. It's all built in a stack that it's okay. It's matchsticks, it's okay. And then from there, you can generate a clear PRD product that has all these details and references back to the prototype. That's what the engineers are going to take to implement.
yeah, I asked that question because I wonder if there's a bottleneck when you have multiple people picking a direction.
Yes, 100%. If that's the case, we don't have that problem, but I could totally see if that's the case. I do believe in like chaotic systems where the best idea can win, and you can have like multiple things, kind of like, hey, what about this, and then you centralize that. And again, because code is cheap, you can run this whole cycle again. 24 hours more, you run another cycle to go. But the whole point is alignment, actually.
Is there a way, I don't know if you have some a screenshot or so, how much interface you do with Claude? What's the level of coding that you use, or do you use just...
Perfect. Actually, so maybe I kind of described the whole thing, and y'all can have this later. So let's go into that maybe. So I'll just show you a couple of end results first, and then we can go through the process.
Okay.
Does that work? So 3 different levels of processes. So this is on the consulting side. This was creating a new different checkout places for an airline company. This is like low quality. Think about this as a wireframe, like low quality prototype based on their design. And we create this using Replit. So if you're not familiar with it, I'll just open it up.
Any chance to make the font bigger?
I'll zoom in. Let's see what happens. I guess it depends on the prototype, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is an example of us. We did this with a design colleague where we generated, effectively at the end of the day, like 7 different options of different checkout, like literally last page of checkout, to get alignment from the CEO of this company that just needed to just figure out the direction. It was like, hey, I don't like this. The brief was, I don't like the checkout page, right? And so it's like, you need to perform better. It's like, okay, what the fuck do I do with that? And so it turns out you can just run these cycles and then just do this. And so this is an example of something. This is not the one that won out or anything, but it's an example of something very simple. The way we did it, just so you understand like how we did this case. This is Replit. We just pasted the screenshot of that page, asked it to replicate the existing page, and then spoke to it like, actually we do speak to it. I'll show that in a second, but like you just type to it, just saying like, hey, modify this, this, and that, and it'll start doing it to do this, that screen that I was showing. Because again, you're just trying to convey the message, right, and get a direction from the CEO, right? So that's the example. Really effective to unblock us there. This is something else we created. So these are all examples created in the last few weeks. This is selling a very big thing from Literati. So Literati, we have our point of sale systems at book fairs that are physical. They're terrible. They're built by someone else. It's like, hey, we need to build our own. And this was like selling, why would we build our own if Square exists and Stripe exists and everything to do that? And it was selling the idea that, if we can do that, then the experience for the kids can be so much better because the kids can have their wallets and it can be like going to Disneyland or going to the Apple store or something, right? And so the idea is that you can then sell that you can have Ali comes to me and I'd be like, hey Ali, let's see if you have money. Yeah, you do. Let's use your wallet. And then they say like, you want wild robots and so on. You want this one actually sent to your home. I can get that sent to your home. And you want to contribute to your school teacher? That's fine. Let's donate this thing to the teacher as well. And then you can check out and charge the wallet, and then have an email sent directly to your parent with a receipt, right? So this is us selling like the concept, like, hey, like this is why it's worth. It's not about the checkout experience. It's about everything that we can do about extending that experience and the additional growth that can come from that. And another one, I'm pretty proud of this one because I just want a prize for it. It's just really nice. There's, I don't know, here anyone follows Lenny Richitsky? Yeah, he's fucking awesome, isn't he? So was it an event with him on Monday in San Francisco, and he had this challenge. If you follow him, you might know, like, of using all of this data, right, to do something fun with it. And I was one of the winners where we took the most recommended books in his podcast, like Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and found the most equivalent kids book to explain that to your kid, right? And that's really fun. And you can read about Night Owl and how Night Owl is like good strategy, bad strategy. Because what Owl lacks in size, he makes up for good ideas, cleverness, and friendship can rule over the brawn. But the point is like he figures out a strategy to win over, and that's like the whole point. It's part of good strategy, bad strategy. So some examples of like outcomes of this process, right? But now we're still going to go and actually show you how to do the process. Okay.
Are you discovering and defining with Claude and then moving over to Replit for the prototyping?
Exactly.
Okay.
Let me show you like where I do that.
And did you try the prototyping side in Claude and got frustrated? Replit's just so much better. What's the?
Replit is better at one prompt looking
Okay.
good.
Decent. Okay.
Claude, you can do everything in Claude Code. Zero problem, for sure. It's just like, why bother with it sometimes? Like when Replit can do so really well. Replit is expensive. Like it burns your tokens. If you have a subscription to Claude, it's much cheaper. But that's where Replit really comes in really handy is here when you're doing the final prototype. However, you can also you can also use it earlier. It depends on how confident you are with doing it. So I'm going to show you how to do it all with like Claude Code and so on. But you can do the exact same principle using like easier tools if you want to. But I was just like, hey, let me just show you what I do, and then you can, take it whatever level you want. Let's go into that. So I'm going to show you like, who here uses like Claude Code or co-work with folders on your local device? You do that? So this is actually a really cool unlock, is that if you think that your folder is going to become, that's really blurry.
Yeah.
I'll go to this one. Your folder becomes your project, and you're going to find that, I could be pointing with the mouse, but no. You see that there's a Claude.md file? And so what you can do, ultimately, is that you go to either your Claude Code or Cowork works as well, and you select Cowork or Code. Cowork is easier to use. I do use Code though, and you just choose a folder, and you can go into desktop and select our folder is going to be the folder you're going to use, and then you open it, and it's like always allowed to change files in the folder, and so it's going to generate files and change files inside of the folder, but it's going to do things if it's a folder that already exists, like this one. It's an example of a different project you did. It's got a Claude.md file already that has actually a bunch of context about what this project is about and what we're trying to do and what the files are. So when you start a new session in that folder, which you just saw me do, selecting, it's going to remember everything you told it to remember before. So you don't have to re-explain that what this is the project and whatever. And this is how I literally must have nearly hundreds of folders now for different projects, prototypes, and things like that. Because in each, you're just kind of reinitializing everything exactly where you left it off. Claude even has a task system where that it keeps track of its tasks. So I can be like, hey Claude, like, where did I last leave this? And he's telling you, like, you left it here, here, here. Here's the next task that you decided to prioritize last time. Okay?
And you're saving the files to your folder on your laptop?
Laptop. And this has been really weird for me because I swear my laptop had no physical folders on it until, I don't know, November. Until November. Everything was in the cloud, and I'm like, what? This is like a regression.
Now we're back. Weird world.
It's so weird. And then the next thing you get into is like, well, but I still want it synced, and so you initialize GitHub on Git on this, and then you push it to GitHub, and you have a copy of it. So you can keep evolving with it. But this is kind of like what you get as an end result. I don't think I can zoom in on this, but if you see, like, this is after everything is done. What I have is I've got my Claude.md that's got to summarize, and I'll show you how to do this. In the next 8 minutes, apparently. I've got a best practices folder that has all of these deep researches that I've done that I can go back and go through, right? And it's got summaries here, and it's got this MVP demo spec, where this is the prompt I gave Replit. This is the thing. So I've used Claude to go through the whole double diamond thing, figure out which direction I want, and then I'm like, oh, generate the prompt, I should use this for Replit, right? And I kid you not, this thing was a single shot prompt in Replit after doing this whole thing. I did not edit a single thing. Like, that's the thing. So if you get a really good prompt, Replit, and this is not, Replit a year ago could not do this for sure, but Replit today is really impressive. And that's the thing, that's why I like it more than Claude Code, because Claude Code, I've generated something good, but it would be ugly, and I would now have to spend a bunch of time working it, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Also, Replit works really well for me with designers. So I can be like, hey, I've created this, let me partner with my designer colleagues and so on to just go in and do edits. In Replit, you can do this thing called remixes. So let's say, explain like I'm 5, and you click here on the top, and you click remix. It's just going to copy that, and I'll be like, hey, Jerry, love best designer I've ever worked with, and he's going to just take it, and he's going to be like, hey, but this is not in our guidelines. Let me work through the guidelines and stuff. And if you're interested, we can talk about how to actually get it to comply to guidelines and stuff. There's a lot of things you can do. So just very quickly, when you start with a folder here, what you do, you've seen me, so I created a folder, it's got nothing in it, right? That blank page experience. And you've got over here, this is me with a terminal, and you can do this in the terminal, or you can do it with Claude Code directly here. This is up to you. I like terminals because you can open so many of them, and it's kind of very minimal, but it doesn't matter. All you need to do is you right-click on it, and you say new terminal at folder, and it's going to do that. And then you just say, hey, start Claude. And I live on the edge, and I like to say dangerously skip permissions, where it just does this thing. You YOLO it, but you don't have to, right? And so that's the thing.
In this case, because it's just operating that folder, would it only impact things in that folder?
That is correct. However, important, because you say dangerously skip permissions, if one of those things that it said is like, hey, I want access to your whole desktop, it could go rogue and do that. That's why some people that do this, so if you just are careful and everything, it doesn't happen. That's also why a lot of people are getting dedicated Mac Minis and laptops and stuff for that is actually because it does make sense. It's like
Right.
you end up creating an environment where you know even if it goes rogue, it's fine. It doesn't. It tends not to. But I mean, someone could be like, we are a small startup. I have small consultancy, whatever. If you work at a bank, if you work at whatever, like you have very different risks that you have to deal with, right? So that's So for me, it's fine. For others, maybe not.
You said until now you didn't have anything on your computer anyway. What if, for example, you use external storage to save your files, and when you're running a program like that, you disattach your external storage, there's nothing to get?
That's fine, but this is controlling your computer. Like from the terminal, it can do whatever you want on the computer. It can access the web. It can do whatever. So whatever your computer has access to, technically it can access it.
Okay, only during that session, or
Only during that session.
only that session?
You close the terminal, it's gone.
So if you disattached external storage, and that's where you stored all your files, cumbersome but protective,
Yeah.
you could have a layer of protection.
And exactly that. And those are the types of mindsets that we have to have. Where
Right.
We totally
Because
do
you
that in such a
kind
way.
of can't fully trust it.
Yeah, exactly that. So you saw here, I can actually start 2 sessions at the same time, which is really cool. And in 4 minutes, this is the kind of thing that I would do. Let's say we wanted to do a Goodreads for kids. And obviously in 4 minutes I can show everything, but I can give you the intent. So what I'll do here is, and again, you can do it exactly here as well, same thing. But what I'll do here is that I'll talk to it. That's the other big deal. So I've got Willow Voice installed, you can install Whisper Flow. So I press my function button twice, and then I speak to it what I want to do. So it can be like machine gun into it, right?
Gotcha.
Hey there, I want to start a project here where I want to deep research opportunities in creating an app like a Goodreads for kids. Let's start by initializing a Claude.md file that specifies what we're trying to do here. And let's create a folder that is called research benchmarks. And within it, I want you to launch 5 parallel deep research agents, write each of the results into a .md file. I want you to research what are the key pains that parents of elementary school years kids have right now. Same for teachers as a second one. Best UX practices for kids for creating solutions for kids. Best UX practices for creating solutions for parents. And a bit of a landscape of just competitive landscape as the last deep research agent. So it's doing its thing. I just press enter, and it's going to start doing its thing. You can see that starting to happen. And
Does it make the view bigger? The view on the terminal?
Can we? I don't know. How do I do that?
The view tab on the very top,
Yeah,
and I think
bigger.
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 There you go. Oh.
So it's doing. I did not know I could do that. So we learn every day. So you can see like how it's starting to do that. There's nothing inside of the research benchmarks yet. Nothing. The Claude, I can open it and see what it's starting to write, and that's obviously things you can come and edit, right? So still very simple here, and that's things you're going to be building. But what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be using Claude itself to build these assets and frameworks, to build this framework for you. Okay. So obviously we have 2 minutes to go.
And the Sublime can view also.
Yeah.
There you go.
And again, I didn't write this. I'm just speaking with it. And this is why we call it like vibe coding and vibe design and everything, is because we're kind of going with the flow and doing it. Again, the big takeaway in this case is like using the folder structure is really, really powerful because you can keep building on it and keep building on it. And again, I just want to show you again like that outcome here. Apparently it was too small, so apparently I can't do that on the folder stuff. But this is like a complete example here. Right, and I can show you the outcome of that as well, and the different folders as you progress. The thing that I can't show you right now is how to launch multiple design agents. So remember, this is the starts. You're going to get a feedback, all of this summarized. You're going to be like, hey, this is the design direction I want. I think I haven't played with it too much, but I think the easiest place to do it would be to now try the Claude.ai/design. It's got native built-in for what I'm about to say, which is, hey, take this brief and launch 6 design agents that explore different ideas of how to do this. And it's going to go ahead and do it. Beforehand, I used to use Pencil. Pencil as an MCP tool for everyone's familiar, and Pencil can do the same thing and launch these different agents. And I'm happy to show an example of that ongoing as well to do those. And again, you pick the winner from there, and then you decide which direction to go from there. Go for it.
The voice to text, do you use a separate tool or
Yes.
with
The reason I use a separate tool is so that it's consistent across all my apps. Instead of having to rely on does the app have it or not. So I use Willow Voice. It's very good. It's a good free tier. Whisper Flow is another one. For me and the way I speak and how fast I speak, Willow Voice would work better. And it's worth, for me, it's worth the money for this one. Sorry.
This is just how what's happened when I vibe coded, and I know you got a team behind you to fix it. But do you ever get stuff back that you wouldn't be able to push to production, or that it would be too hard to work with from like security standpoints or those kind of things? And how do you get around that?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So first things first, none of this ever goes and sees production.
Yeah.
So this is what we're talking
This is
about.
pre-production.
All of this is not even pre-production. It's what I call the virtual twin. It's like
Oh, okay.
it's an alternative universe that, as a black box, behaves the way you want your product to behave. Okay, but it's not going to go into production at all. What you're going to do from it, once you've decided on direction, you're actually going to use Claude Code and everything to generate spec that an engineer can take and use their own Claude Code instance and everything and design and architect properly to work at scale. But then suddenly they have something that it can compare against, right? So you've already demonstrated, oh, this voice to text feature works. Oh, this is the speed we should be able to get stuff to work, right? Because and a whole other topic I would love to talk about is like designing with data and with real data and how that totally changes how you can do design. And like you can already show this working. So I think, so does that answer your question? So like that's kind of like you have this, almost like this USB protocol where you've done this whole thing and then you have to kind of boil it back down to the essentials so that the engineers can then build it with that. Because they're the ones that are going to be receiving a call in the middle of the night if this shit just breaks down, right? I am not. It's their responsibility. So again, so that's why we have to have a really good handoff at that point.
Makes sense.
So go for it.
Similar question, when you're building out or demoing these working prototypes, how do you get around something like saving state outside of using like local storage, or is that even like...
In the prototype?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really cool. You can use like legit coding, legit everything. Like, so legit off, legit anything. The reason I call it a virtual twin is that you're not going to use like your production versions. You're kind of going to replicate something that you feel safe to do. But for example, let me show you very quickly an outcome of one of these. So this process is something called our summer reading lists. And we started from a similar, that's what I was going to show in some of the slides and so on, like starting with something like we want kids to be able to write their list, and we realized actually it's not about the kids or the parents, it's about we need book fair coordinators and librarians to create lists that they're going to disseminate to school. So it totally changed based on the process. And if I show you here how this works, I can, you can upload an existing list or start from scratch. And if you upload a list, hopefully I don't have anything. So this is a list in a CSV file. It's going to be doing its thing, right? And it can be like Mr. JD at winterati.com. Let's say if I want to show the other example, I can, oh, it's true, I did AI recommendation as well. It can start from scratch and get started. So two different ways. One is like the manual way to do it. But this thing works. Like it's using real database stuff. I can figure out what I want to actually add to my list. And then I can go and preview and share my list and be like done editing. This thing now works. I can give you this link over here. And if I go back to my prototype link, which is gorgeous here, it's there. This is the same books I just did. And it's saved to a real database. It's not local. So that depends on how you want to create your prototype. But that's one of the nice things about Replit. Replit is very opinionated. It's a bit like Lovable. So Lovable, exactly the same. Lovable is even easier to get started with in terms of vibe coding. It's like, it just takes away a lot of decisions from you. So you can just focus on the outcome. The problem with Claude Code is that you can decide absolutely everything for it. And so you'll need to kind of figure out a way of deploying it and everything. With Replit, you don't. Like, I like this. I'm like, okay, cool. Then let's just click here, republish. And I'm just going to click that link, that button, and it's going to be publishing that to a site I can now point people to. that has a real database and can demonstrate. And that means I can share with even users or something if I wanted to do unit testing and so on. So that's just
Yeah, it's all handled by Replit, just automatically. You don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, which is why this concept of virtual twin is so good, because then from the moment you say, hey engineers, I'm writing code, this has got two really big benefits. I'm writing code, but my code is not your code. Like, I'm not doing your job. I'm figuring out what we should be building. Right?
Yeah.
And so you're doing two things. It's great benefits. Benefit for you because you don't have to worry about how your real auth works and how the real constraints of whatever deployment you need to do is. No, you're just doing your own. It's a virtual twin because it's like, from a black box perspective, if the user is looking at it, it behaves and acts exactly the same way that your real application works. But inside it's completely different. And from your engineers, you're like, this is not, my work is not to figure out how to scale this, how to make this work reliably. That's your work. I'm just figuring out what we should build, aligning on what the real problem we need to solve.
Coming up with the original prototype
and
for
that's
them to work with.
and that's the point. And the cool thing is that then we can go for much bolder ideas, like because suddenly you're like, oh, instead of the MVP being like, oh, we need to de-risk and everything, you're already de-risking so much shit, right? And the biggest risk is, are people even going to like this?
Yeah.
That's the biggest risk. So it's like, okay, let's go and push this out there, and you've done that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
What does it cost for using Replit?
Replit? I believe it's currently $20 per person, per team member. However, you'll burn through tokens. And so that's why it's much more cost effective. So you can actually do research and you can talk to Replit like you talk to Claude Code, but it's going to burn through tokens directly. The best subsidy out there right now is a Claude Max subscriptions, $100 and $200. There's nothing out there that gives you compute as cheaply as them. And so that's why we end up doing so much stuff outside of Replit, and then in Replit you're really just only caring about this interface. And just in case it wasn't clear, like here I just look at stuff, I see what I want to change, and I just type here, hey, change this. I can't point and click and edit. I have to describe like, hey, change this in this way, and Replit is going to do it. So that's the other benefit of using Replit, is like the first prompt gives me something that is already in the direction I want, and then I'm like, oh, but I want to tweak this, I want to make it work better on mobile, I want to whatever. Then I'm just staying in Replit to create the experience that I want people to experience it. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Sorry.
Hey, I'm curious how your collaboration with design works, since you can just ask Claude to basically use the guidelines or even send a screenshot and ask, make it look like this.
Yeah. I think designers are so much more powerful than that. Like a real good designer can just really get to the crux of what feels good and what's really special. So I work with a designer called Jerry. Like, he can make anything look good. It's fucking insane.
What is it?
No, Michael is a guy.
Oh, guy.
and he can make like Replit sing and make it work, like be beautiful in a way that I can't. And that's why people say like it's about taste and everything. So with design, the way we work is like, hey, designer, I really like you're only touching Figma if it comes like at the very last resort, because there's like a very detailed thing that we need to document and we haven't figured out how to hand that over. Like you're doing everything in Replit first to figure out the experience, and then once we figure out the whole experience, you can just like give some detailed design notes and something in Figma. Like we started doing even screenshots and stuff, like just to be able to just do like the detailed design annotations. But that's how it works. Like that process still works. It's like I figured out the direction. Many times, actually, this loop, I don't run it. I get a designer to run it. Why can't a designer run this thing? It's exactly their job, right? And they do it. And so we do it in parallel sometimes. So, but this has been a really interesting thing, just kind of extending your question. So I have people on my team that are marketing. I have someone from marketing, someone from design, both running this loop in parallel, and then both bringing like where they got to in their design review and discussing, because all of us have a different preconceived notion inside of our heads, right? And so it's really cool to be able to have that clash as well.
Do you also use code once you've gotten into code to analyze like success rate or any sort of
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, that's like Claude for Vibe data analysis and stuff, and it's amazing. And yeah, it's really, really good. Happy to talk about that. Perfect. So if you want to get in touch, please do. That's my contact details. And otherwise, let's have some more fun today.
Thanks, Eddie.